item on the agenda tonight. I'd like to remind council that staff will be pausing intermittently to answer any questions. This item is a staff presentation on a proposed cross-deck industrial facility. This project is north of Camelback Road and adjacent to Luke Air Force Base. We have our Development Service Director, Christopher Baker, and Engineering Director, Rebecca Zook, presenting. You're on.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for giving us this opportunity tonight to, I'm trying to look and see where my mouse is, I'm sorry, to have this conversation with you tonight about a project that it's actually located in Maricopa County and seek some policy direction from the council. Sorry for the delay. There we go. So the property in question is located, you can see right there, it says site bounded within that red line. It is approximately 1 mile east of 303, which you can see on this map here over here. Litchfield Road is 1 mile to the east. 303 is 1 mile to the west. Excuse me, I misspoke. The entirety of the parcel is 157 acres, and it's proposed to be developed in 2 phases. A north phase, which is phase 1, which is the subject of the subject of tonight's conversation, and phase 2, approximately another 80 acres roughly, that is to be determined in the future. There is no current schedule on the southern portion of the property or phase 2. The property, as you can tell, is immediately south of and adjacent to Luke Air Force Base, and as such, it does have some constraints about the uses that are allowed there, much like we have in our Luke Air Force Base corridors as well. The applicant is in the process of seeking a plan of development approval through the county, which is very much akin to our special use permit process. So there's a public hearing that will be taking place at the county later this month, and then the Board of Supervisors in early May. And we'll get to that schedule in just a couple of moments. So just to kind of put this property again in context of what's around it, to the north, as I mentioned previously, is Luke Air Force Base and the city of Glendale. To the east is property that's located in the city of Goodyear, within Goodyear city limits. As a matter of fact, this property right in here, the city of Goodyear owns currently. This property in the yellow is owned and used by Liberty Utilities. That's where they're building their office complex here in the front currently. And then this is Palm Valley Phase 9, all of which is located within the city of Goodyear corporate limits. South and east of the property is the city of Litchfield Park. And immediately south of the property, this is PV 303, the far northeastern reaches of PV 303. This is Palm Valley 5, all in here where you can see the rooftops. It's approximately 500 feet from where the cursor is on this map. 500 feet from where the cursor is on this map, immediately south to the closest residential property line. It's about 990 feet from where the cursor is on this map, immediately south to the closest residential property line. This is PV 303, and it is owned a mix of industrial in this quadrant, and then this triangle parcel right here is also zoned as mixed-use commercial, like C2, our general C2 type uses. This does allow for industrial type uses currently. So this is an image of the plan of development site plan that is currently in process with the county. It has earned the approval of and the consistency approval from Luke Air Force Base. It is 187,658 square foot cross-dock industrial facility that handles palletized cargo. So it comes in on a pallet and goes out on a pallet. There's also ancillary structures that are proposed, such as a maintenance, fueling stations, scales, and similar type of relatively minor infrastructure. There are 683 employee parking spaces, which is located in this region in here, and then 1,480 operational parking spaces. So there's trucks and vans and trailers, those type of operational vehicles. So there's 1,480 of those. This map is turned, so Luke Air Force Base is right here This is north. North is the opposite way on this map. You'll notice that the driveway comes out this on the west property line and then continues down to Camelback. And then this is phase 2 of the property here, which is not currently proposed to be developed. This is just 80 acres of phase 1. Again, the project is located in Maricopa County, and they are requesting the land use approval, that plan of development approval. The County Planning Commission is scheduled to hear this case on April 23rd at 9:30 in the morning, and the Board of Supervisors likewise is scheduled to hear this meeting on May 6th at 9:30 in the morning. Due to the virus, these will be on, you'll be able to have, or citizens or anybody will be able to have access to the meetings online or by telephone. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca to talk about Camelback Road and some of the engineering related issues.
Okay, thank you very much, Christopher, for that explanation. It was a good backdrop into the engineering components of this project. So again, I'd like to reiterate this is a county project, so we will have little to no review of anything that's on site. However, we will have the opportunity, and we are considered the sole reviewing and permitting agency for Camelback Road improvements. It is a little tricky, and I want to explain that in that Camelback Road, the city has 33 feet of right-of-way on the north side of the center line. Then there's a 10-foot Glendale strip, and then there's 22 feet north of that that's county that will be also dedicated as right-of-way. So in total, that section is 65 feet of right-of-way that would be necessary for the development of this project. So it is a three agency agreement that has to be entered into, and that will be part of this project. We're working on a similar agreement far to the west between Sadea and Azure Canyon at our western boundaries of the city. So it's going to be a similar type of agreement because we have this situation all along Camelback with Goodyear, Glendale, and the county. So now let me jump into some of the specific requirements for this project, and honestly for any project in the city of Goodyear. They're required to do their half-street improvements along their frontage. That would include any additional lanes that are needed, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and streetlights. That's normal and customary. Anybody would be required to do that, but that's just for their 1,320 feet of frontage. In addition, they would also be required to do water and sewer, and in this case, water and sewer is Liberty Utilities. And from what I could tell, those utilities are already stubbed out to this site, so it could be limited infrastructure for those improvements. So the other portion that the city is able to review is a traffic study. And so that would have the city look above and beyond what are those normal requirements, such as their half-street improvements. It could tell us where a deceleration lane is needed. It would have us look at where they're accessing the site and if there's a curb cut, a future curb cut, because it's anticipated that Camelback would be 3 lanes, a median, and then 3 lanes. So we have a lot of opportunity there to evaluate what's happening with the traffic when we review a traffic study. We have had an opportunity to review this study one time, and about 45 minutes ago, we received the second submittal. That submittal should address the comments that we provided at the first submittal, and then I was told by the developer that some additional changes were made as well. But I will tell you that I have not had a chance to review that. And I would be working with my staff, the traffic engineer, to review that to see what other opportunities we would have to make a comment on. And I will give you some examples. Say, for instance, they have significant traffic that heads over to the 303 that impacts the 1 lane that is there to where the level of service would be insufficient. We would have the opportunity to request that they build out that section of Camelback. We also would have the opportunity to say that when warranted, a particular signal. Example would be at the site, the 152nd Avenue that comes up from the Palm Valley 5 neighborhood. That doesn't have a signal today, and maybe with the addition of traffic as well as the traffic that travels along Camelback, a traffic signal could be warranted with this development. At this time, I am unable to provide you with a recommendation from the engineering department on this project with respect to the traffic requirements, and it's simply because I have not had the opportunity to review the second submittal. We would review it, and then if we had any additional comments, we would provide those or would move into an approval for this project. But at this time, I just have not had the opportunity to do that. So I'm unable to give you what I would recommend from an engineering perspective. In addition to the traffic study, we also have the opportunity to review a conditional letter of map revision. So, Christopher, can you go back 2 slides? I think the context, that one. So when Christopher showed you this slide, if you notice the sort of dark blue color and the reddish color, that's floodplain. And at the southern extremes of the site, along the northern half of Camelback, you'll see that there's additional blue in that area. So they do have a, pardon me, a sliver of floodplain that they'll need to address for this particular project. And so because that will be in the city's right of way, we'll have the opportunity to review that CLOMR. We've done one review, we've provided comments. Once they resubmit, again, we would go through the review and approval process. And then once we do that, it would go on to FEMA for their review and approval as well. So that happens to be a 2-step process. And then another thing I wanted to add about is that really deals with off-site flows coming to and around the site. They also will have on-site flows that, because of their development currently, it's a golf course, but as they develop, certainly they will be paving a vast majority of that. But I am not concerned about the development in that way because the county themselves have requirements for retention, on-site retention and control of their discharge from the site. So they'll follow the rules just like we do in Goodyear, and that will eliminate the potential for someone downstream to be flooded because of this development. They have to retain their flow on site. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Christopher to wrap up our presentation.
Thank you. So based on the unknown information and the fact that we have not actually had the complete review of the updated traffic study, the CLOMR issue, as Rebecca pointed out, in addition to helping to create a cooperative IGA with Glendale, the city of Goodyear, and the county for the roadway matters. And this item is scheduled to go to the County Planning Commission on April 23rd. Our staff recommendation to council is that we communicate to the county we're requesting that the project be delayed until those particular matters are appropriately resolved. And with that, Mayor, that concludes our presentation.
Thank you for both presentations. Who would like to start off the conversation? Wally?
Well, Christopher and Rebecca, one of my concerns, well, I actually have 2 concerns. One of my concerns is the students in Palm Valley Phase 9 crossing Camelback and going down to the wash to school. We had that issue before, and now if this site is built with big trucks coming, could we, well, I don't know if we could have them build an overpass, pedestrian overpass, or not. But we need to take that into consideration because those kids are going to cross that street. And if it is busy with a lot of trucks coming in and out, then we've got another safety issue that we need to be concerned with. And you did mention the possibility of a traffic light. And to me, I think that would be a given if they're going to have trucks going in and out. And if you said you might require them to build Camelback all the way to 303, if they were going to use that route, would they not use that route off of 303 to come into there? And it would make sense. If they did, there has to be a light there for them to be able to turn in.
Pardon me. Thank you, Councilmember Campbell, for your comments. I'm going to try to break them down one at a time. With respect to Parcel 9, we have installed a traffic signal to help those children come across Camelback. And I understand your concern if we added additional traffic, but ultimately, the pedestrian crossing at that signal is sufficient regardless of the traffic at that adding to Camelback. In addition, based on conversation that we had with the applicant this morning, they're anticipating for at least phase 1, 90% of their trucks to go west to the 303. So that gets to your second comment, which is, yeah, they'll come from the site to 303, but also from 303 to the site. And so that's where they anticipate the vast majority of their traffic at that phase 1.
Joe?
If we had this in front of us where we had a golf being converted to this type of facility with houses around it, would we be in favor of that? Or would staff be in favor of that?
So thank you for the question, Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo. From a land use perspective, that type of use makes sense in that location given the restraints on the property from Luke Air Force Base. The noise contours, there cannot be residential there, and there cannot be retail taking place there. So much like PV 303 to the south and west of that property, where there's limitations on the use of the property, it does make sense from a land use perspective. Now, that being said, there are the engineering issues that have to be resolved in terms of traffic, drainage, street lights, and those associated impacts as well.
My only concern is would it be a 24-hour operation?
I'm sorry, are you asking, is it a 24-hour
Is
operation?
it a 24-hour operation? Yeah,
Based-
I feel for the, and I know, when you buy property, you got to be careful what's around you, but there's been a golf course around there for years, okay? And you have neighbors and households that have been around there that probably expected a golf course, not to be converted into some type of truck depot. And at the same time, if that's 24 hours, that traffic, I don't care which direction they're coming in, I'm sure it's going to make some noise with those trucks coming in. So that's why I asked the question, if it was us, will we be pushing, and I understand the engineering issues, I just feel for those residents that are there already that had the golf course and that breakage, and now you're going to put some type of a truck depot there. So that's why I'm not excited about this project.
Mayor, Councilman Pizzillo, if I can have just a follow-up to that. From the hours of operation perspective, that can fall within the county's purview. But again, let's say the county does choose to restrict it, or the applicant and county agree to restrict it for 12 hours a day. They could come back and ask for that. So it's nothing that the city has any influence or direct influence on, I should say.
No, I understand that. But from a city perspective, we could, even though we don't have any say in it, I would think we could make a recommendation one way or the other, whether we were in favor of that particular proposal or not in favor of that proposal. And I've got some heartburn on that proposal as it sits right now. So I just want to get that on the record.
Sherry?
I'm a little confused on exactly it's a truck. What are they doing with the product there? Are they changing the status of it and shipping it out, or what's going on there?
So we had a pretty high-level conversation this morning with the applicant. They're dealing with palletized cargo that comes in off the 303, and then, as Rebecca pointed out, 90% of their traffic goes back to the 303. This is a hub and spoke type of operation. It's not a distribution facility like we've seen in other locations of Goodyear. It has to do, and it's not customer based like like an Amazon delivery or anything of that nature. So they're not breaking it apart, parceling it out, and then taking it out into the community for delivery. It's more of a transitory stop, maybe from the west going east, or from the east coming west to California, where they're changing the trucks, and it's palletized cargo. That's my understanding.
And if I could just add a little bit, I try to do a little research on cross-dock facilities, and it is intended to not have materials stored for in a long length of time. 24 hours is usually the maximum, but it could be just a few hours. And what I understood this morning is the types of pallets might be things that we see at a Costco or a Home Depot. So I imagined that they bring an entire truckload of water.
Toilet paper.
I was actually going to say that, but then I thought, no. And so they take the pallets off. So it's a long linear building. They take the pallets off, and they may then disperse that water to 4 different trucks they're going to go back to the 303 and take it to a particular maybe other area. But it's a way for them to take large groupings of pallets and break them apart into smaller groupings to go on a different type of truck.
Okay, I get that. And what, has Litchfield Park stated anything on this so far?
So, Mayor, Councilperson Loretano, the City of Litchfield Park has gone on the record. Their city manager wrote a letter to the county opposing the request, opposing the project on basis of quality of life impacts and also traffic impacts.
Brandon?
Yeah, so I just want to also talk about this project as well. So I know, have we ever had, I don't think we do it very often. Have we ever told the county that we want please don't have a project here or there, or other places in the past? Have we done that as a city? Is that we normally do, or is that just very rare? It seems like it's very rare that we ever tell the county not to build or to build things.
Mayor, Councilperson Hampton, it's very rare. As a matter of fact, I've been here for 5 years. This is the first time we've had an interactions such as this with the county. And I think it's been exceedingly rare. Let me put it like that.
Okay, and then I know we don't have any control of what goes there at the end of the day here. We can control how they're going to set up the streets and the drainage and things like that to our liking, because we own most of Camelback, so we can control that. And do we know phase 1? Do we know is phase 2 more of the same, or do they not even know what that is yet?
The information I've been able to discern from the county, and also based on our conversations with the developer this morning, I think it's to be determined. It could be an extension of this. However, it may be something else.
Okay, yeah, something like, I don't know about this, but something industrial seems like it makes sense if they're going to get rid of I don't think anybody wants the golf course to go away, especially if you're a resident. It's probably nice to have the golf course there and less noise and things like that. But I imagine if it wasn't there to begin with, something up against Luke Air Force Base seems to make sense industrial wise for that use, because you can't put anything else there. Yeah, and was it always zoned for its, this golf course isn't zoned, is the golf course zoned industrial, or do they rezone? Is that part of this process that they're doing now, is trying to rezone it to industrial?
So, Mayor, Councilperson Hampton, I've tried to discern some of the county processes. I believe what I've been able to learn thus far is such that what they're asking is this plan of development. And so it is very much akin to our special use permit process. So they have an airport overlay district, the county does, which has some limitations on use, much like we have throughout PV 303.
Yeah.
And that if you want to do something within this area, you have to do this plan of development process. And so that's how I currently understand it. And that's why it's akin to the city's special use permit process.
So if I bought a house in Palm Valley, either the Palm Valleys, and I was doing my homework, would I have known that this could have been something other than a golf course at the time that I bought my house?
That's,
Not
so
sure.
you could actually go in and contact the county, much like residents contact us, and look at what's allowable there currently by the land use entitlements from the county. But that, obviously, we all know, doesn't prohibit somebody from
Yeah.
asking for a change.
Yeah.
So, to a certain extent, you can educate yourself if you're an interested property owner, but this plan of development may not be something that was contemplated.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I put myself in the shoes of a Palm Valley resident, if I would have
And
thought
Mayor,
that would have came or not. But
Mayor, Councilmember Hampton, most of the time when we receive inquiries from citizens seeking to educate themselves, it's about what's directly behind my wall or
Yeah,
what
yeah.
directly could be there.
yeah.
Not so much 500 feet away or 1,000
Yeah.
feet away, roughly.
Well, and just to clarify too, that triangle shaped behind Palm Valley Phase 5 is zoned industrial currently, correct?
So Mayor, Councilmember Hampton, this property, this triangle piece is
Yeah.
mixed use commercial. So it's like C2
Okay.
right here.
But
It
we-
is located within Palm Valley 303. And then everything this way is already zoned industrial.
Yeah, because I thought we already rezoned or was already zoned that way because we were already looking at that.
That's
already.
PV 303 zoned industrial. Now, I will share with you, if you remember from previous conversations that we've had, is that this is Charles Boulevard, and there are particular use restrictions within 300 feet of Charles Boulevard to mitigate the impact to the existing residents.
Yeah.
So within that distance, you could have things such as office, more C2 based, and it also limits the height of the building to
Right.
be more compatible. But certainly up by Camelback Road, along here can be large-scale industrial warehouse distribution projects, much like you see in the other locations of PV 303.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, anything other than a golf course will probably affect quality of life to some extent for anybody living in that general area. So, but I do agree. I do think we should, to your recommendation, delay to make sure at least we're good before we move forward. So,
Yes, and Mayor, Councilmember Hampton, if council does choose to give us that direction and we communicate that to we're requesting the county to do it, obviously it's up to them to accept the request or not. But
yeah, we could say whatever we want, but they might not accept it. So, okay. Thank you.
Bill?
Thanks. Thank you both for the information. I want to start off with talking about Councilmember Hampton's comment about the rarity of the opposition, et cetera. Directly west of that site is the Arizona Motorsports, where we took no position on that as a city a number of years ago. And I used the exact same words that Wally did a couple of weeks ago. And we paid hell for it going forward because we chose not to take a position. So, and I think when we look at the number of times when our city actually interacts with the county on a property, those are very rare as well. There's not a lot of activity where we're butting up to where the county is. It's usually another city or something else. So I don't think we should be dissuaded by the frequency of this because this issue is really, it's very important to the Palm Valley 5 residents. It's very important to, I would say, anybody who lives west of there because as we all know, when you travel Camelback, that road is treacherous in and of itself, and it is a major regional thoroughfare. Counties using it, Buckeye's using it, we're using it, and even Glendale, I would argue that there's residents that are coming down and around Litchfield Park, certainly, and that road is in the condition that it's in because there's too many players, so there's too many cooks in the kitchen, so nobody knows what the recipe is. And this is our opportunity to say to everybody, hey, we got to fix this. Regardless of whether it's this development or another development or whatever, Camelback Road needs to be addressed going forward. And whether it, we're all focusing on the west of this property down Camelback to the 303 because we quote unquote presume that that's where the majority of the traffic is going to go. There's still that section going eastbound where Camelback goes from 4 lanes or 5 lanes, however you guys define it by engineering standards, down to 2 lanes back to 4 lanes. And we've got we have that regional issue to address as well. So I think from a traffic perspective, we've got a major issue there. And I think we would be having this exact same conversation if we were talking about the property south. If someone said, we've got this great thing, we want to put it south of there, we've got this, we would be having this, what are we going to do about traffic on Camelback discussion? So this is a great opportunity for us to take kind of advantage of that. While I tend to always agree with the mayor on the you should know what you're buying when you buy it, I don't know that anybody would have anticipated that golf course butting up to Loop to be transformed into an industrial park. You know, I bought in that area and I've lived here for, you know, almost 20 years, and I don't know that I would have envisioned that turning into an industrial park. The property west of it and continuing west of it that's all vacant right now, I think we could have assumed that to have turned into anything. But ultimately, I think we owe our residents the ability to take a stand on this situation. I appreciate the staff position of we should ask for a delay. But if the county says no, what will our stance have been? Our official stance on record would have been neutral. And if the county decides to say no, and I don't think that we as a council should take that stance. I think we should, if they're not willing to delay it for us to get this other information, I think we should take a more proactive position along with the city of Litchfield Park in recommending that they deny it. But if they go forward, here's a whole list of things that we're going to need to do to address that. Because we've got to protect our residents who live in that area, both directly south of there and west of there. We have a very large development in Sedea and a number of commercial projects that are going to be impacted by this if we don't take a stand. And I think we owe it to our residents to do that.
Laura?
Well, like everybody else, I'm completely empathetic to the residents of the area. It's a big, huge transition, and it seems like it's probably going to be the first of many discussions, because I'm just curious about all the land north and south of Camelback between that area and the 303. Is there a master plan for that? Has that all been zoned out? Are we going to expect to see more industrial? Starting with that.
Mayor, Councilmember Kano, on the south side of Camelback, all the way to 303. I'm going to change maps here. On the south side of Camelback, from this location all the way over to here is within the Palm Valley 303 industrial property project, PAD. So with the exception of that area by Charles that I mentioned earlier, that can develop industrial just like you've seen the other projects throughout PV 303. Now, that being said, there is a prohibition because of the accident protection zones coming off the end of the runways. And so there is like a no build area right in here that nothing would be built, and then also right in here. So there is a no build area, but the rest of this property along in here, along in there, could all certainly be could be industrial in the future because of the noise contours and the fact that no congregations of people is what the Luke Air Force Base looks at. Retail, churches, schools, things of that nature, housing, things of that nature.
Okay. So there will be lots of more discussions on this very topic, which really does bring up the road. It's mostly one lane. There's already a lot of traffic on it right now, a lot of trucks on it, a lot of weight on the road. You know, it's increasing with the things that are being proposed. So then you've got a multi-jurisdictional thing. So I'm sure that's definitely full of challenges. A couple other thoughts. One is 152nd is just going to be right at the front door. They'll come out onto Camelback and the places across the street. Is there anything in their proposal about street front, what it's going to look like in terms of what
you will see when you're coming out of that neighborhood?
Thank you, Councilmember Kano. From what we understand, the access to the back parcel, so the Phase 1 piece that we're talking about today, is actually along the western edge of the parcel. So the 152nd might be the access point, primary access point for the undetermined industrial park area. But for right now, this particular development we're talking about tonight is actually trying to focus all of their traffic to come out that further westernmost. And to be honest, they said they did that to specifically try to create a separation from the residents to the south.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may add on to that
Yes,
just a
go
little
ahead.
bit. In terms of the Camelback improvements along their half street and frontage, their customary normal, that would be to landscape and so forth, and sidewalks and curb and gutter. So the right of way would be completed, but beyond that, it would. We don't know exactly what that proposed use, nor would we know what it would look like until something moves forward.
Okay. Now, you mentioned, Rebecca, that they would have to keep all their water on their own property because of the floodplain and such, but is there any potential impact to the Bullard Wash?
Thank you for that question. And I've had that question already as well. They have to deal with sort of the pre versus post. So essentially what runs off their site now, they can't increase it beyond that. So they would not have an increase to the Bullard Wash. But that doesn't mean, and I've said this before, it doesn't mean that next year we aren't going to see an increase because of the farming operations. But they will be required to retain what they do today on the site and not discharge it outside of their property.
Okay. And lastly, would we have to establish truck routes along Camelback to accommodate all this traffic? I mean, what if they want to go to 101? I mean, it just seems like it's a lot of trucks.
Camelback is already one of our designated future truck routes.
Okay.
And so they would be required, if they are going anywhere but to a delivery to someone's restaurant, house, grocer, they need to go to the 303 and continue on from there.
Okay. I would agree with Vice Mayor's proposal that we make a statement on record, and then we've got tons of things that we need to consider in terms of the road and the wash and all those other things. But it's just unfortunate to see this change, potential change.
Bill, you had another question?
I did, to follow up on Councilmember Kano's question about traffic. So while I understand the psychological effect of wanting to move that to the west so there's not this, implication, the challenge that creates for us from a traffic perspective is we're going to have a lot of theoretical truck traffic in and out of there, making lefts, making rights if everything goes there. But there will be some that are going to go east. And that whole area isn't really designed for that, and we're going to increase the traffic. From an engineering perspective, doesn't it, I'm pretty simple. Doesn't it make sense that we connect those two together and put a traffic light there to allow access in and out of that? But I realize that's in the traffic study that you haven't seen yet.
So in my conversation with the developer, that would, the westernmost access point would be right in, right out only, and left in. You couldn't make a left out.
Right, but even the left in is going to create, because, traffic delay, et cetera. So and I'm not anti, I shouldn't say that, but I'm not a fan of all of the traffic lights that we're putting in so close to one another, that we're going to create a situation where we're going to have an entrance that's not too far from where a light should be or could be. And I think this is just one more danger. And I get, like, this is the perfect reason why we say, hey, delay it, let's figure this out. But again, if they say no, and they have the full power to say no, then what has our position been? And I think that's getting back to what I said earlier, so. Thanks for the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just like to clarify that during our first review of the traffic study, they only had 2 access points, neither one of which was 152nd. They had one at the western extremes and then at the eastern extremes. And so our comment was, please have your access point at 152nd. And so when I very quickly glanced at the study that came in a short while ago, I did notice that they added the 152nd access point, but it still looked like the majority of their traffic were going out that western entrance. But again, have not had an opportunity to review the number of vehicles entering it or exiting the site at those 3 access points.
And we have really no way of, other than a sign that says no left, no, they will allow a left in. We have no, other than a sign of saying you can't turn left out of there.
So the future Camelback, which is what we're all talking about, has a median. And so we will be able to control the access.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I'm the last one. So I know the unions are very strong and the trucking industry is very strong. So I can see the power behind this, and there's nothing wrong with being in a union. I don't mean to say it in a negative way, but the number of complaints we've had from Litchfield to the Camelback area by residents and then the school. I don't understand this, so I'm not a good navigator. So they don't like to use I-10 and travel down 303. So it's important that they go through a neighborhood where a school is and crossing. It doesn't seem right. It really does not seem right. And I do think we have to be more observant of this, and I don't think we have, because our city has grown so rapidly that some of these decisions were made so long ago that I think we don't even have in the back of our minds to say anything. But to put a neighborhood and children in harm's way, someone must have a red face on this one. Someone must say, ha ha, my mother would really get at me if they knew this. It's not right. And I'm going to protest it no matter what you vote on. But my conversation with the county is going to be no. So truckers, go on I-10, go down 303, and go into your business. Stay out of the neighborhoods. I know they're on times, but that's their problem. I know they make money by the speed in which they arrive at their destination. Sorry. We all have things like that in our life with our job that seems not quite right, but we have to find another way, right? Mm-hmm. Another direction. So that's my position. Any other conversation? Any questions from us?
So, Mayor, if I may sum up, it seems as though the consensus policy direction is for the city to take a stand that says we recommend that the county deny the application, but if you should choose to approve it, we need to get the traffic study solution, the IGA worked out, any cost recovery type of issues, traffic signal matters, things of that nature. Is that a fair statement?
No,
I
we
think
need
you
to
got that
oppose
right.
it.
That's what I said.
Okay. Okay. I don't want them to think that we're changing our mind.
No, ma'am. It would be that the council is recommending to the county to deny this application.
Okay.
However, if they approve it, we need
No,
to
got
be
it.
and participate in these other items.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me just finish this, and so where are we here? So,
Mayor.
yes,
if I may, just,
You may.
I would just like to thank you for having this work session tonight. I know it wasn't originally planned this way. And I think getting you the information and you having the ability to call for this, you know, and your excitement to defend the neighborhood, I think should not go unnoticed. And
Oh,
I
that's
just wanted
very
you to
kind of you.
appreciate that. Thank
I
you.
don't always do that, and I know you use my favorite, my favorite expression, did you not check before you bought the home site? But in this case, it's an easy way out for the company and the truckers. And I don't want to give them any easy way out. Okay? So we'll review any information from the council at the next regular meeting. And I know the city clerk wanted to say something before I adjourn this? At the beginning in this. Now, may I ask, do we start it right away or do we wait till 6? Right away. All right. No further business to discuss. This meeting is adjourned. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting on April 13th. Please join Councilmember Laura Tano in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, as we just come out of the Easter holiday and Passover, all your children of all faiths need your help and your guidance. Not just our country, not just our state, but the whole world looks for you, Holy Father, to help us in this time of need. We ask that you give your love and embrace those that have passed on from the virus. We ask that you protect our healthcare workers all over the world. We ask that you protect our first responders who are facing an enemy they cannot see. We ask you to protect our children, our businesses, all across the world. At this time, Lord, all your children of all faiths need your help and your guidance. We need you to help us give the scientists the skills and protect them so that they can help your children. Dear Lord, at this time we are not Christians, we are not Muslims, we are not Jews, we are not Buddhists. We are all your children, and we need your protection and your guidance so we can see this shining light and live with you. Amen.
Councilman Loretano, thank you for that very meaningful prayer, and I think we're all feeling the same way. So we're all present this evening. So we have one communication item. The first item is an update on the COVID-19 the pandemic. I know I said that wrong, but we don't call that any that way. We call it the other way. So, yeah, COVID-19. Yes. Okay. Now's the time. Are we doing this, citizens, at all on the phone or anything like that?
So, Mayor, I think that the clerk would like to read a statement about
Oh,
citizen
that's when
participation.
she wanted me.
Yes.
All right, I'm turning it over to Darcy, our clerk. Darcy?
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to give you the information. We actually put it on the agenda of the different ways that the public could participate in this meeting. Because the doors are locked due to COVID-19 and Governor Ducey's order, then we actually have it to where members of the public can actually email in. We set up a specific email address for people to email to public comment, and that's with an S, at goodyearaz.gov. And we've got some additional information about how many words approximately and that kind of information. Also, if the public is interested in watching the meeting, there's 3 different opportunities for them to do so. They can watch it on Facebook, and that would be facebook.com/goodyearaz.gov. And you don't need an account in order to do that. Also, they can watch it using the Granicus site just off of our goodyearaz.gov website. And also, we do also stream our meetings on YouTube, and those 3 things are still occurring. Also, we did include right on the agenda that at any point they can contact the mayor and council by sending an email to the gycouncil@goodyearaz.gov. So we did open up some additional opportunities for people to participate, but due to the door, the doors being closed and stuff like
So
that.
that was our call to the citizens. So I hope they'll take advantage of that. I'm sure they will. So let's go on with the city clerk. Please read the consent agenda items 2 through 9 by title only, please.
Actually, Mayor, we've got the communication item first.
Please. You can see where I am this evening. Yes, go ahead.
Where's the presentation button?
Make your presentation.
Right there? Oh my gosh, it's really hard to see from here.
I can't go through a good meeting, you know that.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. I do want to take the opportunity during the communication section to provide a COVID-19 update. The city has been very responsive to the rapidly changing conditions, and I just wanted to share some of the actions that we have already pursued. There we go. This is just a brief timeline, and really the intent of showing this is how quickly this crisis did escalate. Starting on March 11th is when our governor declared a statewide emergency, followed by President Trump declaring a national emergency on March 13th. And then, of course, Mayor Lord announced a local declaration for the city of Goodyear on March 19th. Schools were closed through the end of the year on March 30th. And then, of course, on March 31st is when the governor put into his place the executive order, stay home, stay healthy, and stay connected. As a result of that, on April 1st is when all of the city offices were closed to the public. However, I wanted to highlight that we do continue to offer services to our community. A lot of what we do here at the city is obviously an essential service. We have everything from water and wastewater, our public safety departments, but also our sanitation department, for example. Under the governor's order, construction is considered an essential service, which means that all of our building department and engineering and inspections teams are required to keep working. So truly, what the city's needed to do was pivot and utilize items such as technology to help all of our residents and our community continue to stay open. A couple of things I wanted to highlight. Of course, as I mentioned, the city has closed its offices to the public, but we remain open for business, and that can be done online. So, for example, paying utility billing, reporting a problem, online police reporting, and even including Goodyear Library e-media and permits by mail. But for our residents and our customers who need to come into City Hall, they're able to do so by making an appointment, and our team is here and ready and able to help them. With regards to parks and recreation, city parks remain open during the regular hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. However, our rec programs and park amenities are closed. We also had to cancel a number of our large city signature events. On the good side of life, the recreation division and also our arts and culture division have gotten very creative in putting on some fun and engaging activities online. When it comes to the organization, we have adapted quickly through the use of technology, and many of our employees have transitioned to working from home. But we have a lot who are working in the field, and we are taking the CDC guidelines very seriously as far as decontaminating and making sure that we have social distancing in place for all of our team members. When it comes to tools, like everyone else, we are struggling and having difficulty acquiring the personal protective equipment, but our teams, including police and fire, are doing a good job of managing and working with all of our partners to try to secure additional equipment. I think everyone's concerned about the economic impacts of the crisis, and all indications are that we'll experience a deep economic recession, and the length of it will simply depend on how long the pandemic goes on. But we do believe Goodyear's poised to come out of the recession quickly, but our planning is going to look at a slower, more moderate recovery. Of course, City Council has adopted financial policies and conservative revenue projections that have positioned us well to absorb the economic shock and adapt to the dynamic environment. We are in a strong financial position. And in fact, even after lowering our revenue projections for the current fiscal year, based on our strong year-to-date performance, we are still anticipating exceeding our original budget for 2020. Moving forward into 2021, our strategy is to maintain existing services. And when we look again at the current fiscal year, we've put into place some measures, again, to be very conservative, to position us for fiscal year 21, such as having essential expenses only with city manager approval for purchases above $2,500, and also my approval for any new hires. Yesterday, the state released a map that has, for the first time, given us an opportunity to look at locations of the virus positive test results. So in Arizona, we have, as of today, 3,702 cases with 122 deaths. And by zip code, when you can zoom into this map, I just wanted to show the information that's available. We have 2 zip codes in Goodyear that are essentially all of Goodyear, and that is 85395. And they have right now 15 positive cases, and zip code 85338 has 20 positive cases. Of course, just as we saw in our earlier presentation, we do have Goodyear residents that are in a Litchfield Park zip code, which is north of Camelback. That entire zip code has 11 cases, but we're unable to differentiate which ones of those might be in Goodyear. So if we stick with just those first 2 zip codes that we know are all of Goodyear, we have 35 cases total as of today. In looking and analyzing that information, that is 1.7% of the total Maricopa County cases. So Maricopa County has 2,020 cases right now. So Goodyear's total of that is 1.7%, which makes sense because we're about 2% of the overall Maricopa County population. So one of my first impressions when I looked at this map is I was maybe expecting to see pockets where there was and wasn't activity like you see more generally throughout the state. But in Maricopa, in general, you'll see all of those red shaded, which shows greater than 10 in most zip codes. I did want to make a note on this data that the governor's office has been highlighting, and that is if patients have a residence that was unknown with the reporting, they're using the location of the treating facility. So you see some abnormalities in an area where the Mayo Clinic is located, for example, or there's a hospital in Tucson whose zip code shows probably some abnormal numbers. And so it's not perfect. They're really asking us and warning us not to make decisions on our personal activities based off of this map. It's truly meant to just show, where it is, because I think there's been a lot of curiosity about that. But the CDC guidelines and the governor's executive order, they're asking everyone to continue to comply with, despite what area of the state someone may live in, and based on this map. Just wanted to highlight that the team has put together some great resources for our businesses and residents. At the general website, goodyearaz.gov/coronavirus is our general page. We have a special page just dedicated for our local restaurants, goodyearaz.gov/where-to-eat. And then also a small business resource page that includes information on the CARES Act and initiatives. And our economic development team remains available to, I encourage any of our businesses reach out. They've done a lot of research, spent a lot of time learning about all these different small business administration programs, and they're eager and available to help. And then I just included a couple of the more general resources for the Arizona Department of Health Services and, of course, the Centers for Disease Control. I wanted to give a special thank you to our first responders and all of the employees that are on the front lines working countless hours to manage the crisis and to help mitigate the impacts to our community. I'd like to recognize my leadership team and all of our employees for coming together to do what's needed to get the job done and take care of the community. I'm proud of how they've stepped up to look to innovative solutions to overcome these unprecedented obstacles to provide quality service to our customers. However, this is just what we do in Goodyear. I also wanted to thank Mayor and Council for your leadership and continued support of the team to do what's right for the citizens of Goodyear. Our community is strong and will be even stronger after this. Together, we are resilient.
Thank you. Any comments after what the city manager said? Do you have anything that anybody wants to add to that at all? It's just because it's been a very difficult time for everybody. And so lots of conversation out there in public. But yes. Laura?
I just wanted to say thank you for the way you put out information on a regular basis. It's been so helpful just to keep us abreast. There's so much information flying around. And it's just been your steady hand of leadership, just being consistent, putting information out. It's just been very meaningful. I love the creativity, like you mentioned, that we're seeing, different ways people are communicating, and even getting the arts and culture out. The Westmark has a weekly West Valley Gems, and it was featured. Guyleen's virtual art tour was featured as a gem, and so that's very exciting to see that kind of innovation being acknowledged. But I love this. Together we are resilient. It's great team, great leadership. Appreciate everything you've been doing.
Any other comments? Sherry?
I just want to thank you too and your whole team for everything you've done and just the whole staff. I mean, this came literally out of the blue. This wasn't planned for, and you all have done actually such a wonderful job, keeping the city steady and everything. I'm hoping we're getting to the other end, but we don't know exactly how bad it's all going to be when it all shakes out. So I think with your leadership and your team's leadership, we're going to pop out well the other side. And that's really because of the people that, are here at the city. So thank you all.
Yes, Wally?
So Julie, can you tell us where we look to put in our zip code to check the cases? When I went on this morning, I didn't get the figures you're giving me. So maybe you've got a different website than what I've been
Yep, let me
going
go back
to
to
every
it so
day.
you can see it. So at the bottom of the slide, the source is azdhs.gov.
Yeah, and it says find your zip.
Yes. And so when you use if you zoom in and then you can use your mouse, it hovers over the zip code and it will tell you how many cases.
Okay. And my next comment is I do want to have a debrief for council when this is over so we can know what worked, what didn't work, how we are going to plan so we're not caught like this next year if this is back, especially in the technology field and the telephone field. And we need to know so that we can budget it if necessary or even change the way we do business.
We do have a list of all the governor's meetings and all the, we have copies of how, right? Which has a lot in it.
Yeah, so I think, Mayor, to your point, and to your point, the debrief process for this will be very important because this is unlike any other crisis that we've managed. Although after every crisis, we should do a debrief. There's always lessons learned, and we won't know probably for another. I'll be optimistic 6 weeks until the financial picture, what the health picture looks like. And so it's going to be important to take a step back, congratulate ourselves for the things we did well and look for those lessons learned so that if this does become a repeat, even in the fall or next spring, that we're as prepared as possible. So thank you for the comments.
Well, it's so unusual. We have not started with our EOC, and for years, that's all we talked about is to make sure the EOC was up and running and had all the stuff it needed so that the very instant anything happened at Palo Verde or anywhere else in the city, they would be there. And this, we haven't done it because it's a different type.
Yeah,
this
was a difficult one.
It is, and we don't really have a book to go by, and we have some rules to go by, but we don't really have rules to go by, and it's really kind of, we're flying by the seat of our pants, but y'all have done a wonderful job. The whole country is that. It's not just us, because we don't know what to do or how to do or where it is or why it is or when are we going to get out of this, and hopefully we'll be able to start lifting some of the down stuff soon so that folks can get back and try to get their lives together somehow.
It's hard to tell people how to run their lives.
I know.
So,
I know.
all right. Can we go on to the city clerk? Will you please read the consent agenda? Is that where we're at?
Actually,
Or am I missing it again?
just the public comment, just so you know, we have not received any emails through the public
Okay,
comment site.
thank you.
But yes, then consent.
All right.
Number 2, approval of minutes. Number 3, authorize an extension to the intergovernmental agreement with the state of Arizona for wastewater treatment service to Perryville Prison. Number 4, conditionally approve the final plat of Sadea Parcel 2A subject to stipulations. Number 5, conditionally approve the final plat of Sadea Parcel 2B subject to stipulations. Number 6, recommend approval of a new Series 10 Beer and Wine Store, liquor license for True by Hilton Goodyear. Number 7, recommend approval of a new Series 11 Hotel Motel liquor license for Spring Hill Suites by Marriott Goodyear. Number 8, accept the dedication of 2 water meter in line easements from Astoria Parkway LLC, an Arizona limited liability company, and approve a release and termination of easement for an existing water meter and line easement. Number 9, adopt resolution number 2020-2049, designating Finance Director Doug Sandstrom as the city's applicant agent for purposes of signing all necessary documents and conducting business to engage the city to apply and receive emergency assistance from the state of Arizona and/or the federal government.
Thank you. Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right. Can I have a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 9? Do I hear that motion?
So, second.
I didn't hear who said the first. Okay, motion by Councilman Campbell and a second by Councilman Pizzillo. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell? Councilmember Hampton?
Aye.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, we're at the business. I'd like to remind council to wait for a motion and second before discussion. We're on number 10, the only item on business to consider approving the 2020 development agreement for the Phoenix 70, allowing for a delay in the completion of the off-site roadway infrastructure requirement for the Phoenix 70 site. Engineering Director Rebecca Zook presenting. Rebecca?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm here this evening, as the mayor said, requesting council to approve a development agreement for Phoenix 70, allowing for the delay in the completion of the off-site roadways associated with the project. Those roadways are Indian School to the north of the site and Citrus Road, which runs along the western boundary of the site. And as I mentioned in my prior presentation, those improvements are normal requirements of any development. They are required to improve their frontage, their half street, which would be additional lanes, curb gutter, sidewalk, and streetlights. For Phoenix 70, they have also done their water and sewer improvements. Those were with EPCOR and Litchfield Liberty Utilities, pardon me. Those are completed and were necessary for their first building. They have, in addition, been working with Maricopa Water District, or MWD, for about 8 or 9 months. That water district has existing utilities that are in the future right-of-way. Phoenix 70 has to relocate those utilities and then abandon the existing ones. And they have been working for quite some time with MWD. And at this time, they're very close to a solution, but it will take some time to wrap up their agreement and then for them to go out and make the improvements and then remove the existing utilities that are in the area. Because of this, they have requested that we allow them to move forward with both a temporary C of O as well as a C of O for their first phase or their first building. And that's what this development agreement is about. It does allow for all other life safety requirements must be complete. In addition, it allows for the creation of an escrow account for financial assurance. That's different than what we usually do. This allows for easier access for the city to those funds if something were to happen, and we would be able to pull those funds and complete the roadway improvements ourselves. From a traffic perspective, I just want to share with you that for this particular project, I have less concern about the roadway improvements being done at slightly later date because they have very little traffic associated with their first building. Had it been significant traffic, we as a city would not have considered this. With that, I would like to also thank legal. Sarah was a huge help in the development of this DA. It took quite some time, and I'm happy to say we were able to complete it. Today, as a matter of fact, we have the signed documents. And then, again, I would request approval of the Phoenix 70 DA allowing for a delay in their roadway infrastructure. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. So to the city clerk, did you get any comments?
No, Mayor.
All right. Will the city clerk please read resolution number 2020-2045 by title only, please?
Adopt resolution number 2020-2045, approving the 2020 development agreement for Phoenix 70, directing the city manager to execute the 2020 development agreement for Phoenix 70, authorizing and directing actions and providing for an effective date.
Can I have a motion, a second, to approve resolution number 2020-2045? Do I hear that motion?
So moved. Second.
I heard a motion by Vice Mayor Stipp and a second by Councilman Pizzillo. Open for a council discussion. No discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Hampton?
Aye.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, we're at the last on information. Does the council have any comments, commendation reports, current events, requests for the future items? Councilman Stipp.
Based on our last work session that we just completed, is it possible to have, I'm going to say staff, but probably John, send out an email to the residents that have contacted us, letting them know that we've taken this position, in opposition, if that's possible?
Can we do
Good.
that? Because this is a work session. No, we didn't vote. I mean, I guess they,
Well, we did take a
Well, let's
position, we
ask the
directed
lawyer.
staff, so.
Can we put up, is that, the public has sent us many letters, and John has written an answer. And so now we've done something a little bit different than,
I think what you could state is, based upon the council discussion at the work session, you directed staff to weigh in opposition at the project at the PNC meeting. So I think that's the direction that came out of work session.
So Mayor, I'd be glad to work with staff on the exact language, make sure it's approved by legal. But I will assure council we will get those responses out to all those residents.
I mean,
Brandon?
we also notified, I think through Nextdoor when the different meetings were going to be too. So I don't know if that's also something that we want to do or not, or however we communicated to them that the meetings were coming up so they could go to planning and zoning for county. Maybe we could follow up with the same avenues that we did that with the same way, and the individual emails as well. Do we have, I don't know if this is a policy or not, but in the future, if we're gonna, since we're opposing this one, this type of use for that, the rest, if any other developments coming up in the future that are like this north of Indian School, do we want a setting, do we want to do one at a time, look at each one, or do we want, if anything like this comes forward again, just we oppose it, anything north of Indian of Camelback? Because I got a feeling that area is probably going to have more like this. If this one gets turned down, might be more uses in the future. So, just a thought.
you have a comment, Joe?
I just think as they come in, we address it, I mean.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, we're a little
Stop the
off
We off topic?
topic here. I'm sorry about that.
Station is finished, okay?
I know I'm bad. I know.
All right, yes.
I had a fortunate experience on an unfortunate incident about a week ago where I had to call on emergency paramedics at my house, really for life-saving an event. If it wasn't for their quick action and getting my wife to the hospital, she probably wouldn't be here today. So I want to give a shout out to our fire department for their excellent service, because again, they did an excellent job. And again, thank you, fire department.
That's nice, Joe. Any other? All right, Julie?
I have no updates.
Okay, well, that's great. So with no other comment, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Meeting's adjourned.